The North Shore Center for the Performing Arts in Skokie is celebrating their 30th anniversary, and they want you to pull up for one of the fun performances coming up, including Michael Carbonaro with some magic on July 18th, comedian Maj Jabrani on July 19th, Grammy-nominated trumpeter Chris Botti on July 26th, Ghostbusters in concert October 7th and 8th, and the one and only legend comedian Maria Bamford October 24th. They got free parking and access from the CTA, so go on and get your tickets now at Ticketmaster.com. Today on CityCast Chicago, this year's school board elections are right around the corner. How is CPS planning to close a massive budget gap? And what the hell is going on in Cook County traffic courts? It's Friday, May 29th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. I am joined by two amazing guests this morning from Injustice Watch, Kelly Garcia. Good to have you back, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We've also got Chalk Beat Chicago's Rima Amin in the building. My friend, it's good to see you.
Good to be here.
For everybody listening, if this is your first episode of the week, go ahead and fix that. I know it was a shortened week for many of us, but go back and listen to the rest of our episodes of the week. You will not be disappointed. We got some big stories to talk about today. Rima, this year, for the first time, Chicago will elect every single person on our 21-person school board. This process has been years in the making. You have come on the podcast to break it down and explain it to us time and time again. Well, this week, candidates had to get their petitions in with the signatures from their district in order to get on the ballot. How many people filed?
Yeah, so the grand total is 51. 51 people have filed to run for school board.
Mm-hmm. Is that equitably split across all the districts? Like, does everybody have like multiple candidates gunning across their A and B section?
So all but two sub-districts are contested. The two districts that are not contested are up like in the North Center area, Ellen Rosenfeld, who is an incumbent. She's a currently elected board member. And then the other seat is on the southwest side, covering West Lawn, Midway area. And that person who is running is Angel Gutierrez, who is also an incumbent, current elected board member. Besides that, every seat is contested.
Well, that's good to hear. I will say Gutierrez is currently my school board representative.
Oh, okay.
And there was a much more highly contested race during the first one. I mean, the amount of mailers I got, the amount of text messages I got from Gutierrez and the individual who's running against him, I'm shocked to hear that they're going to be running without any oppositions. Currently, there are 10 elected school board members. The rest are mayoral appointees. Are all of those folks running again?
So actually, everyone who sits currently on the school board, both elected and mayorally appointed, is running, except for current board president Sean Hardin, who was appointed by the mayor. He has for months said that he will not be running in this election, that he is counting down to the day that he can return to private life, I think.
Understood. And so can you remind people, does the school board president get picked from amongst those other districts, or is that a separate election itself? Like you can run specifically for school board president?
The school board position is a citywide race. People across, all three of us, we're gonna see them on our ballots. There are two current school board members running for board president. Whoever, if they both lose, if one of them loses, they're gone. They've essentially given up their current seat on the board.
Got it. I mean, what kind of money are we seeing flowing into these races already?
So, as is usual in elections, candidates create committees. They start raising money before even this filing process. And so far, my colleague Mila, compiled these numbers. About just over $500,000 is already flowing into, these committees, candidate committees that are raising money for prospective candidates. If 2024, which was the first time we even had an election for any of these seats, if that year is any indication, the fact that all 21 seats are up for election in what is I expect to be a very, robust race,
Hmm.
we're going to see a lot of money, I predict, flowing into these school board races. And I think some of the biggest players are going to be the Chicago Teachers Union, whose political director is actually running for board
Yeah.
president. He's one of 5 people running for that seat. And then I think the INCS, which is the main charter school advocacy organization in Chicago and in Illinois, I think they're going to be pumping a lot of money in. There's also some other organizations that are backing candidates. There's something called the Common Ground Collective, which is, I would describe it as probably more moderate. Chicago Teachers Union has criticized them. So there's a lot. I actually think that there's probably, even though $500,000 may not sound like a lot to people now, I think that the money is just going to be sort of, is going to match 2024 or even go beyond that.
A few years ago, I was very interested in local school council and local school council elections. And I remember realizing that wherever the money flows is where people are more likely to have better representation, and local school councils where there was more money were, likely to be on the north side. And so to me, it's very interesting to hear where the money is coming from and which districts are going to have more money getting pumped into their elections versus others. I know this is the first time we're having a school board, like a fully fleshed out school board election, but money is always a strong determinant in a lot of these elections. So it'll be interesting to see how this actually plays out in real time and who's actually going to get better representation.
And I'm so glad Kelly is here with us today, because I find Injustice Watches, like your voter guide, to be completely invaluable. I don't know what I would do at the ballot box without it. And I feel like, Kelly, you're probably in the same position to some extent that we are. You're living and breathing during election season, like judicial races. We are thinking about school board races. But the reality is that there was a survey done. I think it was a majority of people who polled had no idea.
No idea.
That school board elections are coming this year, or like who they, might be running, even who their current board member is. And I don't know if you relate to that when you're covering judicial races.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think judicial races, and I would say this about school board elections, they probably have the most direct impact on people, but people are less likely to know about them.
Even in just you breaking down where where the money is coming from, it made me think about some of the issues we talked about, what are going to be like the big tempo issues going into the last election, which is like, how will the teachers union show up? Where's the money for charter school support coming from, and what candidates are taking it, and how is it impacting their talking points? There was this conversation around mayoral appointees and elected officials, and will there be some animosity there, or will the mayor have enough representation on the board to get his will through? I mean, what do you think is going to be the big issue going into this election, given that right now CPS is trying to figure out how to cut over $700 million budget gap?
Yeah, that's right. 732 million to be exact.
She's like, Kobe, don't leave that 32 mil on the table, my boy.
Every dollar counts. No, but yeah, it's a massive budget deficit. It's very similar to the size of the deficit last fiscal year, or I guess for this current fiscal year that they had to close. And I think that the budget is going to be a huge issue as these candidates walk into election season. It's very interesting timing for this board. Most of this board is running for election. And however they solve this budget problem is going to come up over and over again in candidate forums, questions from constituents, why did you vote the way you did? Why did you decide to close the budget gap in the way you did?
Like if they end up having to cut staff positions and teachers, like last year, custodians were cut, crossing guards were cut. If this happens again and it's also impacting teachers, I imagine the amount of texts and mailers flowing in that says your board member voted to, fire staff and teachers.
Right. Yeah, I can totally see a world where like that will be the case. So yeah, I think the budget is going to be a major issue going in. I also think that people are talking about this, school closure moratorium that expires next year. And, it was a resolution that one of the old school boards passed, but I think they're probably going to be pressed on that because there are, enrollment has been dropping in CPS for many years now. And there are smaller and smaller schools. And this is something that keeps coming up in conversation, especially when you talk about the budget and the use of buildings. And I do think that is another issue that they're probably going to be asked about quite a bit.
I remember when Pedro Martinez was still the head of CPS, and there were a lot of concerns of, should he be relieved of his position? Should CPS take on some additional pension payments? And one of the things you heard from board members is like, hey, we're close to election. Let's wait until this new board is in. Now that they have to get a budget approved, by the end of August, and some people are going to ask for some major swings, like let's make some systemic changes to make the district more sustainable long term. I don't think these school board members will get away with, let's wait until the next board is seated, since many of them are hopeful to be on it. And so what type of, sort of the feet to the fire, what type of pressure do you think these school board members will be under to get a budget that not only deals with issues in this moment, but moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think that pressure is always there. I definitely do think the election ramps it up a lot. And again, I think people are going to look back at however they decided to solve this budget issue. And I think I would predict that would be a major factor in how people who are paying attention end up voting. I also think that the district for years has been talking about, we need more money from Springfield. We are owed more money from Springfield, and there needs
$1.6 billion.
Right. And, and this idea that we have this structural deficit. There are things that can be done on a state level to help alleviate that. This has been CPS's position for a while now. And the superintendent now, Macklin King, has said she's been really aggressive in Springfield and that she's talking to state lawmakers. But the reality is the session's about to be done. And I don't want to speak definitively, but I don't think there's additional money on the table. So in absence of that, I think there's also a reality of, how do you close a major budget gap without doing some of the same things that they did last year? And I do think that in the budget proposal that was presented to the media a couple weeks ago from CPS, it is clear that right now there will likely be layoffs, staff cuts. The district has sort of refused to say exactly by how much, because there's going to be some back and forth between schools and CPS on how they iron it out. But they've made slight tweaks to their funding formula, and that's resulting in nearly $100 million in what they're called savings. But, in essence, I think schools would see that as cuts compared to last year. So I say that all to say that, while these school board members are going to be watched very closely with how they solve this issue, there are also not a lot of options, again, on the table. And so it is a bit of a between a rock and a hard place, but again, they're the ones responsible for figuring it out in a way that's least harmful to the people that they represent. So, I think there's going to be a little bit more pain this year than there was last year.
Yeah. To learn more, please check out Rima and her colleagues' reporting. We're going to drop links in our show notes. The Newberry Library is excited for their ongoing commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. They want you to stop by and visit their brand new exhibition, Free and Independent, which includes a July 1776 broadside copy of the Declaration and a handwritten manuscript of the Federalist No. 3. Then you can stop by the reading rooms to view Jefferson's annotated copy of the Federalist and Washington's diary. On June 6, scholars Danielle Allen and Scott Stevenson will appear at the Newberry in an hour-long conversation to discuss Allen's brand new book, Our Declaration, a reading of the Declaration of Independence in defense of equality, and take a deep dive into the history, impact, and contemporary resonance of the document. As always, exhibitions and programs at the Newberry are free and open to all. Learn more at www.newberry.org. What's up, Chicago? We got something big coming up that you do not want to miss out on. We are doing a live taping of the podcast. Yes, a live taping for the first time in 4 years. And we're doing it at the brand new Switchyard Chicago in Logan. And if you haven't heard yet, Switchyards is like a co-working space, what they call a neighborhood work club. Place to kick it, get stuff done, connect with your neighbors. And here's the deal. Members of CityCast Chicago get first dibs to attend our live show, and they get a chance to check out the space before it even opens. It's all going down next Thursday, June 4th. Plus, one lucky neighbor will walk away with a free membership to Switchyards. So, to guarantee your spot right now, become a CityCast Chicago neighbor for $10 a month, and you'll get access to this exclusive event and many more. Join now at membership.citycast.fm/Chicago. And if you're already a neighbor, check your email. We sent you an RSVP link. We're going to see you on June 4th. Kelly, you've been following ongoing developments in Cook County traffic court, specifically as it relates to immigrants in the broader county. Can you kind of catch me up here? What are you learning? Because it seems like there's a lot of confusion here.
Yeah, so last fall, I started going to traffic court. I was spending a lot of days and hours just sitting through long and honestly boring hearings. But while I was spending time in traffic court in the fall, I found that there were at least 8 cases in which prosecutors were asking judges to issue warrants in traffic misdemeanor cases, by the way, where the defendant was unable to come to court because they had been arrested by ICE and deported. And these are all misdemeanor DUI cases. So these are cases that were not serious enough to become felony cases because no one was killed, there wasn't property damage. In some of these cases, the defendants were first-time offenders. And so that's why these cases are being handled as misdemeanors in traffic court. And again, because they're misdemeanors, most of the time what you're going to get as a result of these cases is you're going to face a hefty fine or you're going to get mandatory supervised release. At most, you're going to spend a year in jail, right? But that's in very rare cases. Mm-hmm. And so what I found is that in these cases, separate to their underlying traffic cases, these defendants who were non-citizens were being arrested by ICE. And this was happening some as early as the start of the second Trump administration. Some of these arrests were happening during Operation Midway Blitz. And so while I was in court, and I was also reading through transcripts of other court hearings that I missed, I was hearing prosecutors say, we have an office policy, or my supervisor is telling me that I have to request a warrant when the defendant is not here. And in this case, they've obviously been deported or they've been arrested by ICE. We don't know how to get them here, so we're requesting a warrant. Why does this matter? Why is this a big deal? So warrants can make it really difficult for people to come back legally to the U.S. And if you have an outstanding warrant, you can be arrested by any law enforcement agency in any state. So let's say you get deported and you try to come back through Arizona and you get stopped by police there and you have an outstanding warrant from Cook County, they can arrest you there, right? And if you're in a state like Arizona where they don't limit cooperation with federal immigration authorities, they're likely going to turn you over to ICE again. Yeah. And so this obviously has really strong ramifications for these defendants. Again, these are misdemeanor cases. I would argue that deportation is a much harsher punishment than what you would typically get for a misdemeanor case in traffic court. And it raised a lot of questions for me about why Burke's office was doing this.
Yeah, I think about a warrant and, in this case, a traffic court, they're saying, you didn't show up once or twice, go get this person. You can't. They're not here, buddy, or they're already in custody. What is their justification for this? Is this for them to be able to have on their books to say, hey, we followed the protocol. The person doesn't show up. We put out a warrant that we're not taking any context involved here. That's just the result of if someone doesn't show up. And if that's the case, why aren't they taking the context into account?
That's a great question. And I'm just going to emphasize what you just said too, right? These people, especially in half of these cases where we knew that they were in ICE custody at the time of their hearing, they couldn't make it to court on their own, right? And so in those cases, prosecutors have an obligation to get them to court. And that could look like a written court order where they ask ICE to bring that person to court. But they weren't doing that, right? Or they failed to do that in many of these cases. So what Burke's office told us is that they request warrants in any case where someone misses their court hearing, right, regardless of someone's immigration status. And she specifically says that someone's immigration status plays no role in how they make decisions on cases and in any type of action that her office takes.
Does that feel in line with some of the other choices her office has made as it relates to the uptick during Operation Midway Blitz, the presence of federal agents at courthouses? Like, does it feel like that doesn't impact people whether or not they're going to get a warrant placed on them?
So here's what I'll say. I mean, her stance has always been that as a prosecutor, her job is to uphold the law. That's always been her stance. And in many ways, I think she's tried to present that as a contrast to the federal government's actions right now. Like, she's trying to come off as like, we abide by the law. That's her job. And that's how, we're trying to enforce it. And I think, obviously since Operation Midway Blitz, like, she's been trying to be more vocal about some of the thuggish behavior that ICE agents were displaying in these streets. And she's been trying to come off as more sympathetic to immigrants, but this obviously raises a lot of questions about that, right? And like, sure, if they do have a policy that they always request a warrant in these cases, well, I don't know that that's always been true in misdemeanor cases, right? Again, these are misdemeanor cases, not felony cases. We know that they do that in felony cases, but if we know that the person is unable to come to court on their own, right, because they're in custody elsewhere, why are prosecutors continuing to prosecute these cases? That's really the question here, right? If we know the defendant has already been deported, if we know that they're unable to come back to the country and face these charges, why are prosecutors continuing to do this? Judges in all of these cases didn't always issue warrants, but right. In most of them, actually, judges agreed to strike the case off the call, which basically means that, like, they're leaving the case open. They're not going to issue a warrant. If and when that person comes back, they're going to have to resolve the case on their own, right? It's still going to be an active case. Again, because prosecutors are not dismissing the charges or not dropping the case. And so now you have a bunch of cases that are just, like, hanging out in the ether because we don't know if these people are going to come back. And that was something that I also we included in the story, too, is that for a lot of these people who have been deported, they actually don't even know that there's
a warrant. Yeah.
Right. Like, they might not
deal
know.
with the chaos of their current situation.
And they don't, right, exactly. They don't even know the status of their pending case. We highlighted the story of one defendant named Gustavo Cuchiparte, who he was deported back to Ecuador, and he didn't know about the status of his case until I called him up and told him. And he was very curious. He wanted to know what was going on. He wanted to resolve it, but he's in Ecuador, and how else is he supposed to resolve that case being in another country? And so, and we don't know whether or not he'll be able to come back soon. So that's another, piece to the story, is that for a lot of these people, their attorneys aren't able to connect with them anymore once they're deported.
And as your story points out, I believe Gustavo's court appearance was coming up right before they were arrested. And the belief is that federal agents going against the wishes of judges have been, using the information they get from the courtroom to go out and pursue immigrants. And so Gustavo ended up in a situation where they were planning to show up for their court hearing. They were arrested, sent to Indiana, eventually deported back to Ecuador. And so, you talk about the ways that having a warrant can impact you if you try to come back. But when you talk to Gustavo, like, what type of confusion did that create for him and his family?
Yeah, so Gustavo was such a unique case compared to the rest of these, because this was his first time facing any type of criminal charges in Cook County. This was his first DUI. His story really started with, he was sitting in his car with his cousins after celebrating an uncle's birthday. They decided to start drinking some beers while they were sitting in their cars. It was in the middle of December. It was really cold outside, so they kept the keys in the ignition so that the car could stay warm. They fell asleep. And sure enough, 2 Chicago police officers came by and they arrested Gustavo on a DUI, which I learned during the story, too, that you can be arrested for a DUI even though you're not driving the car. So long as you're in a car with the keys in the ignition, it shows intent to drive. So, yeah, Gustavo was unique in that he was never even able to come to court in the first place because ICE arrested him the day before his initial court hearing. And ICE did confirm that they arrested him as a result of those of the misdemeanor charges. So he's never been convicted for anything. He never even got a chance to appear in court for those charges, right? But I still arrested him. And so he missed the 2 hearings that he was expected to attend. When I contacted him, honestly, like he didn't even know what to ask. All he could say was like, I want to resolve the case. I just don't know what to do. I don't even know how to show up to on Zoom, or I don't know how to show up for this hearing. And you know, he didn't have an attorney, right? Because he missed that initial court hearing, he couldn't even make it to court to ask for a public defender. So he didn't have an attorney in the room to advocate for him. His wife showed up in court and she had to talk to the judge through a Spanish interpreter. But even she, right, she didn't really know what to do other than just alert the judge about what was going on in his case. So, that case was particularly egregious because, you know, he never even got a chance to contest the charges.
Another thing that makes this even more complicated is, right, Illinois has passed the Safety Act, and one of those components was about giving judges more discretion. We've talked about this, and that, right, that's not a perfect system, but it sounds like, given that traffic courts are often populated by newer judges, maybe there's a challenge in how new they are to the bench, their discretion, and the amount of independence they're being given. Like these two things are not always working lock in step with one another. And it sounds like some of the decisions to put a warrant on an individual isn't coming from the judge on the bench, but maybe from someone else.
Yeah, and that's true, right? Judges and the attorneys, the prosecutors, the public defenders, most people there are new. So in Gustavo's case, for example, the judge had discretion to decide whether or not to issue a warrant. I mean, that's also spelled out in the Illinois Pretrial Fairness Act, right? Like they can issue a warrant whenever, right? But they're supposed to at least give the person an opportunity to try and make it to court again, right? There's different options that are available for judges to make sure that someone makes it to court. But during Gustavo's second hearing, the judge, Michael Cabinargi, at one point, he referenced the state attorney's policy on requesting a warrant as a reason for potentially issuing the warrant himself, right? And so that obviously raised a lot of questions about whether judges, are they feeling pressured to abide by a policy that it doesn't even pertain to their responsibilities. It's a policy that belongs to another office. Like there were a lot of questions there about judicial independence. Ultimately in Gustavo's case, that the judge, Michael Cabinargi, he scheduled another hearing, and it was another judge who declined to issue the warrant because, as she said, like considering all the details of the case, right, like it didn't merit a warrant according to her. And so, I think there's a lot of questions about how judges are making decisions in these cases. It's clear that the prosecutors have a lot of influence in traffic court, especially when the judges are new and they're still learning how things work. It's especially if they've never practiced in traffic court before, right? Like they're also learning how things work in there, and they're having to rely on their supervising judge to figure out how to make an informed decision on a case. But yeah, it seemed very clear, at least while I was in traffic court, that there was some kind of informal policy in the state's attorney's office that was having a lot of influence on not just how prosecutors were approaching these cases, but also apparently how judges were making decisions as well.
Please check the links in our show notes to read Kelly's entire investigation. I want both of y'all to know I appreciate the work that y'all are doing. So thank you. Every episode of CityCast Chicago ends the exact same way, and that is with me politely asking you to make time to join our podcast tomorrow. But before we do that, some good news. Rima, what's your good news for us today?
It's simple. It's summer. I'm so excited about the weather. 80-degree days, 2 days in a row, 3 days.
Come on. We back.
Yes. I'm so excited. So that
the relief
is
on your face, though, like you can't fake that, G. You said summer, dog. Like the only thing that
I was very excited for the fall. Like I wanted a seasonal change, but I'm a summer animal, and so it's nice to feel that pull back towards the sun. And my friends call me they make fun of me because they're like, you're a lizard, because I like it when it's like 80, 90 degrees. So yeah, I'm in it. I'm ready.
That's one thing I'm going to always love about Chicago. It's not just that we have the seasons, but even now, as they're a little more inconsistent, like they last just long enough to make me yearn for that next one. Like summer gets like just long enough that I'm like, honestly, cool this shit off.
Yeah.
I'm excited. What's the thing you're most looking forward to? Do you bike? Do you run in the summer? What's something you do in the summer that you just don't get to do during the other seasons?
No and no. One of my favorite things to do in the summer, it is certainly not the only thing, but one of them, and maybe it's a little basic, but I love the free concerts at Millennium Park. So I've been texting different friends and being like, do you want to go like on this Thursday? And then do you want to go on this Thursday? I just love it because you can bring in beverages, you can bring in like cheese and sandwiches and whatever, and then just park it. And it's really
kind of
nice.
relax.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get to wherever you are in the city. You got to get Millennium Park that. It's pretty, like, not the easiest, but in terms of like public transit, like it's taking you right there. And so, Kelly, what's something you looking forward to this summer before we get to your good news? What's something you excited for?
Well, my good news was also summer related.
Well, perfect.
I'm actually low-key very excited for Taste of Chicago. I just want to shout out, I don't know who is planning Taste of Chicago, but the last like couple of years, the lineup at Taste of Chicago has been like
amazing. I saw John B out there a couple years ago.
Like it is like up there with like Lollapalooza. Like I'm like, hold on, because this year they have Julieta Venegas, who is like a big, I don't know that they know that she's like a big deal in Latin America. She's like truly like a huge, like in my time, like growing up, she was like a huge pop star. So like it's crazy to think that they got her for a Taste of Chicago and like we're gonna be able to see her for free. I don't know that the city of Chicago understands how many people are going to show up for that. Yeah. So very excited for that.
Anybody else on the lineup you looking forward to? I saw Babyface. I was like, oh,
I saw that. Yeah.
Oh my God. The greatest songwriter outside of Stevie Wonder of our time.
Beach Bunny's also going to be there. So Beach Bunny, I actually went to school, I think, with their lead singer. And of course, now I'm forgetting her name. But Beach Bunny, man, local hometown heroes. Like, I'm also really happy to see them on the lineup as well. I know they played in Lollapalooza a couple years ago. So I don't know, man. The lineup is just like, what? This is like crazy for Taste of Chicago. Like, I don't know who's playing over there, but like, keep it up. Keep it up.
Is it Lily Trefilio?
Yes, Lily. Yeah. That's I went to DePaul with her actually. So
that's what's up.
It's really cool.
The night Comet is performing, some other Chicagoans going to be opening up for him, Rico Shot and K Crusade, who I've gotten to see a lot over the last couple of years. And so, no, I'm agreeing with you 100%. We were actually going to talk about this earlier in the week. And like, is the taste back? Are people still excited for it? Like, because of NASCAR, it got moved to September for a few years, and now it's back prime time in July. And I'm glad you just brought it up organically, because I'm gonna be honest with you, when I was a kid, the taste was one of the events. Like the taste in a bud was something my family was going to, point blank, period. So yeah, I've been a huge fan these last couple of years, and I will say this lineup got me very excited. I think they got some 30%, 40% of the people who are going to be out there are, in terms of food vendors, it's going to be their first time. So
wow,
I love that. I love that. We bringing new people in, and I hope Chicagoans take advantage of it, because I've worked with some of the people over at DK's who put this together, and the amount of energy, like love for the city, how much planning goes into it. It's a big deal for them. And so the fact that it's free, right? You got to pay for the food once you get in, but this is a free event. You know, we talk about how expensive it is to put on summer festivals. That's the same for the city too, y'all. And so all of these stages, all of these acts, and so I'm really excited to get out there. It's going down Wednesday, July 8th through Sunday, July 12th. Babyface is going to be on the 11th. Julieta is going to be on Sunday the 12th. Beach Baby on that Wednesday. And Comet is going to be headlining Friday, July 10th. I'll drop the entire lineup in our show notes. Kelly, I'm so glad you brought this up, because shout out to the Taste.
Yes, shout out to the Taste. You will catch me there, so I will be there.
I will be out there multiple days, and luckily it's not too far, so I will be pulling up. Maybe you get a Millennium Park concert, get you some taste in, get all your downtown in at once until you scurry off back to your neighborhood.
Yes.
I am going to wrap us up with some good news coming out of the South Side Sox Park. Man, I know we are only at the time of recording this one game over 500, but the White Sox have been giving me energy all year in the same way I imagine the Cubs were for Cubs fans up until the last couple of weeks when they decided that, first place wasn't good enough, that they needed a challenge. So they said, let's go back to last place and work our way back up. I understand that journey, Cub fans. I understand that journey. But I will say this new duo of Nishida, who was just called up not too long ago for the Sox, and Munetaka Murakami, who, oh my God, 20 home runs, one off major league lead. I think it sets a rookie record, 20 home runs in 55 games. Sure, he got a lot of strikeouts. Sure, his batting average isn't where it's going to be, but the idea that he has showed up and put every pitcher on notice that the South Side has something to not only celebrate from a wins and loss perspective, but like, even if we lose, there is something exciting. Like when we was getting our ass whooped, it was like, y'all gonna give me something to be happy about? Maybe a pitcher who just doing this thing. But like now, win, lose, or draw, there feels like there's always something to look forward to. That the opportunity for fireworks in Bridgeport is a possibility. Just put the Twins down 15-2. Like, damn. And so I just want to say, y'all have mostly been listening to me for the last couple of years. Just like, let's be real, taking it on the chin, 100 losses after 100 losses after 100 losses. It feels good. I've already been to the park a couple times this year. It feels good to show up. The fans feel engaged. I'm hoping we can stay above 500 baseball well into June. But I'm gonna take it as I can get it. I want to give a huge thank you to our guest today from Injustice Watch, Kelly Garcia. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And from Chalk Beach, Chicago, Rima Amin, thank you for making time.
Thank you.
Before we get out of here, I want to give a huge thank you to the entire CityCast Chicago team. Our executive producer is Simone Alisea. Our creative producers are Michelle Navarro and Emmy Mack. Our audience development manager is Chima Okoro. Post-production from PJ Shahamet. Our music is from Sam Thousand, All the Kimonos, and Mark Greenberg from the Mayfair Workshop. If you really love the work that we're doing, please head over to membership.citycast.fm and sign up to become a CityCast Chicago neighbor. For $10 a month, you're going to get ad-free listening, access to neighbors-only events, like a live taping we got coming bright and early next week. But if you want the information, the opportunity to RSVP before other people, then you got to become a neighbor now. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. I'm going to be back in the building bright and early on Monday. I'm going to talk to you then. Peace. Have y'all gotten a Sox game in yet?
I have, but unfortunately, every time I go to a Sox game, they always lose. So I think I'm gonna hold off